Okay, before Shavuos we were learning candle lighting, Kiddush, Havdalah. Now we'll get into some of the actual things, what you're allowed to do on Shabbos, not allowed to do on Shabbos, but to give a little bit of introduction, because there's a big introduction to the laws of Shabbos to understand them properly. So number one, the Gemara says Shabbos is what's called Yeseido Amunah. Shabbos is called the foundation of Jewish belief. Therefore, according to halacha, why is it belief? Because then you believe Hashem made the world in 6 days, rested on the seventh. So then, by keeping Shabbos, you're basically testifying that Hashem made the world in 6 days. If you don't keep Shabbos, that means the whole concept of creation by you came by itself, or whatever it may be. So therefore, Shabbos is equal to all the mitzvahs in the Torah. In fact, we know that halacha doesn't apply too much today, that somebody who is a mechalo Shabbos, b'farhesia, meaning somebody who knows all about Shabbos, went to yeshivas for many years, learned all about Shabbos, understands Shabbos, knows the ins and outs of Shabbos, knows the sanctity of Shabbos, and yet they openly, publicly desecrate Shabbos, so then they have a din like a goy. Which means you can't count it for a minyan, you can't call them up to the Torah. If they touch your non-cooked wine, it's treif. If they cooking and baking is a different question, that's a different issue. But basically, if they shech, the shechita is not kosher, the mamish have a din like a non-Jewish person. In today's world, like we learned many, many times, that din doesn't apply, because today that's what's called tinik shenishba. Tinik shenishba literally means a kid that was captured amongst the goyim, raised amongst the goyim, so he actually never knew what Shabbos was all about. So even though he knows the concept of Shabbos, but he doesn't really know the severity of Shabbos. So therefore, Shabbos is a very important concept. Now, on Shabbos we know, the Gemara learns out from Psukim, that there's 39 primary melachos, it's called, work, which was done in the Mishkan, and those are forbidden to be done on Shabbos. Now, how do we know that Shabbos is connected to what was done in the Mishkan? Because at the beginning of Parshas Vayakel, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Har Sinai after he had the luchos, and he came down, Vayakel Moshe is called Adas B'nai Yisrael, he gathered all the Yidden, and he was about to tell them about constructing the Mishkan. But as an introduction to that, he said, you have to keep Shabbos. So the fact that keeping Shabbos is put right before the construction of the Mishkan, so from there the Gemara learns out that what was done in the Mishkan is considered work, and that's forbidden on Shabbos. If it wasn't done in the Mishkan, then it's not forbidden to work on Shabbos. But understand the concept of the definition of work. Even though the Torah says, Sheishis Yomim Tasem Melachtecha, you're allowed to work 6 days in the Shabbos, you're not allowed, Lisasa Kol Melacha, you're not allowed to do any work. Work over there does not mean what we define as work. Work, according to the Torah, actually means creativity. If it's called creativity, if you're creating something, it's forbidden on Shabbos. You don't create something, it's not for. It has nothing to do with hard work, easy work. For instance, flicking a switch would be forbidden on Shabbos. Schlepping a table, heavy table, back and forth the whole day, it's not called doing melacha. You're not resting, maybe you're transgressing the melacha, the mitzvah of Tishbeis, to rest on Shabbos. But the bottom line is, you're not desecrating Shabbos. This is a lot of work, you're sweating, and this is flicking a switch, or going for a drive in a car. It's not the concept of work. It's the concept what's called creativity. It's extremely, extremely logical. Why is it forbidden? Well, we have to keep Shabbos, because Hashem created 6 days and stopped creating on the seventh. It's self-understood that when Hashem created the world, it didn't work very hard. Besides the fact there's the Maimer Chazal, Hashem did not create the world with a lot of work. As it says, Hu Amar Vayahi. Hashem said, and it became. Hashem said, let it become. It's not work. So Hashem didn't work for 6 days in creation, because all Hashem did, said, and it became. He didn't work. What Hashem did is He created. He created 6 days, and He stopped creating on Shabbos. Therefore, the Torah says, 6 days you create, 7th day you stop creating. Now, what is the definition of creation? What is the definition of Melacha? So that we just mentioned. What was done in the Mishkan is called creativity, and if it wasn't done in the Mishkan, it's not called creativity. Sometimes it could be rabbinically forbidden. Okay, so that's the concept of the definition of Melacha. That many people always ask the question, I enjoy driving in a car on Shabbat, I just like to go for a ride. Why can't I go for a ride in the car? And I enjoy sitting in a room with the lights, so I want to flick a switch. I mean, why can't they do that? The answer is nothing to do with work. There's nothing to do. It's a question is, we create 6 days, on Shabbos we stop creating. Just like Hashem created 6 days, stop creating on the 7th. Now when it comes to the prohibited things on Shabbos, we said there's 39 what's called Avis Melachos, the main categories of work, but there's also offshoots, and then there's biblical, there's rabbinic. So there's 3 categories, not categories of work, but 3 halachos. Certain things you do is biblically forbidden. If it's biblically forbidden, the punishment is as follows. If you did it intentionally and you were warned, that means 2 witnesses right before you're about to do the act. They came over to you and they said, you're not allowed, let's say writing. Okay, you're not allowed to write on Shabbos. So they come to you and right before you're going to write, mamish right before you're going to come to write, they tell you, you're not allowed to write on Shabbos, and if you write, you're going to get stoned. And the person went ahead and did it anyway. Then the din is, he gets stoned. Because it was intentional, and he was warned by 2 witnesses. So then the court's capital punishment for desecration of Shabbos, he gets stoned. What happens if a person knew it was forbidden, he did it intentionally, but he wasn't warned by 2 witnesses? So then the punishment is, he gets what's called kares. Hashem kills you officially younger. You die young. That's if you did it intentionally, but you weren't warned. What happens if somebody did something on Shabbos, desecrated Shabbos accidentally? What's called in halacha shegig. No, huh? I said intentional? 1 second. Shegig actually means accident. No, it does not mean unintentional. Unintentional is not shegig. Shegig means I did it accidentally. What does that mean? The definition, by the way, what if you did something b'shegig, in the time of the Bais Din, you had to bring a korban chatas, a sin offering. Okay? So again, if you did it intentionally and you were warned, you get stoned in the time of the Bais Din. You did it intentionally, but you were not warned by 2 witnesses, you get kares. If you did it accidentally, shegig, and I'll tell you in a second what shegig means, you have to bring a korban chatas. Now, if somebody is leaning, let's say, against the light switch, and by mistake the light goes on, that is not shegig. In halachic terms, it's called misasek, unintentional. You walk in the street, you're not allowed to kill animals on Shabbos. One of the melachos is shchita. If I walk in the street and I happen to step on an ant, okay, a little bug, so that's not what shegig is. That's not called accidental. Accidental means, in halacha, I know what I'm doing, but I think I'm allowed to do it. Which means as follows. There's 3 possibilities of that. 2 are the most common one, and 1/3 the halacha mentions also. For instance, if I forgot it was Shabbos, and I did something wrong. I know, let's say I turned on the light, yeah? I turned on the light, but I forgot it was Shabbos. I knew what I was doing, but I forgot it was Shabbos, meaning I didn't know that I'm not allowed to do what I'm doing. I thought I'm allowed to do it because I thought it's not Shabbos. Or somebody knows it's Shabbos, but they don't know that you're not allowed to turn on a light. That's the definition of shaygig. Shaygig means I know what I'm doing, but I think it's allowed. Either because I forgot it was Shabbos, or because I think I'm allowed to do that on Shabbos. So which means, what happens if a guy wakes up he wakes up Shabbos morning, he's half asleep, and he forgot it was Shabbos, and he flicks the switch. Yeah? That's called accident. He knew he was flicking the switch. He knew he was turning on the switch, but he didn't know, he forgot it was Shabbos. Or a guy didn't know you're not allowed to write on Shabbos. So that's also shaygig. But again, it means you know what you're doing, but you think you're allowed to do what you're doing. If you did it completely unintentionally, like you said, you're leaning against the wall and by mistake the light goes on, that's not shaygig. You don't have to bring a carbon for that. That's called unintentional. Nothing.
What was the third way?
The third way of shaygig, the Alter Rebbe says, if you asked a Rav, am I allowed to do it? And the Rav said to you, yes, you could do it. And the Rav was wrong. By a biblical, so that's also called shaygig. Because again, you're doing it, and you know you're doing it, but you think you're allowed to do it. So the Rav made the mistake, not you. But Lepel, that's called shaygig also. The Alter Rebbe says in Shin Yud Ches, Im asa pi chacham shetov, you did based on the chacham that made a mistake, so that's called shaygig. The guy shayla, it's a separate shalom chayshemish, but who has to pay for it? The question is it direct, indirect, whatever. But that's a separate issue. So again, shaygig, very important to know because people think accidental means I accidentally turned on a light. That's not what it means. Accidental means in halacha, especially for Shabbos, I know what I'm doing, but I think I'm allowed to do what I'm doing. Either because I forgot it was Shabbos, or I didn't know this is forbidden on Shabbos. What? That means he forgot it was Shabbos.
No, he knows about Shabbos, but he thought it wasn't Shabbos. Or he never
I said, either he forgot it was Shabbos, or he knew that it's Shabbos, but he thought you're allowed to do it. What are you saying different?
He never learned about Shabbos, the mitzvah of Shabbos.
So that's why all the Bal Tshuva, when Mashiach comes, has to bring a korban chatas. Question is one for every Shabbos, one for each Melacha. That's a separate issue. Bais Din will be pretty busy when Mashiach comes. Okay, and then there's another. So now you have like this. You have things that are biblically forbidden, and again, if you're doing biblically forbidden, if you did it warned intentionally and warned stone, intentional not warned, kares. You did it accidentally, you get, you have to bring a korban chatas. Then you have something that's called patur, means it's not biblically forbidden. It's only rabbinically forbidden. The Chachamim, when it came to Shabbos, made a lot of stringencies as fences around the Torah. They're like in Lahavdil, when you make a big hole in the street, they put fences around it. You don't tell people go walk all the way to the hole and they'll fall in. Or next to a cliff, you build a fence that the people shouldn't come to the end of the cliff and fall off. So when the Torah says something, it's like dying, when you're not allowed to do it. And therefore, the Chum made fences around the Torah. So when it says in halacha of Shabbos patur, it means it's still rabbinically forbidden, but there's no skila, there's no chorus, there's no korban. It's only rabbinically forbidden. Many times, the Chachamim would give what's called Malchus Mardus, which was called rabbinic lashes. But it wasn't the same stringency as biblical lashes. They would also give lashes. And then there's another category. You're allowed to do it on Shabbos. Things that you're allowed to do on Shabbos, that's allowed. So again, when it comes to Shabbos, number one, it has to be creativity, like we learned in what was done in the Mishkan. Secondly, There are certain things that the rabbis forbid. Chacham made a fence around the Torah. And we'll see there's a lot of different things that the Chacham made for various different reasons. It's called Shvus. There's a lot of, we'll get to that soon. Okay, that's that. Okay, then he goes to the Lamitas Melachos. Okay.
Just going back on the idea of Tinuk Shanishba, can we say that even nowadays inside Yeshiva Bachram or anything,
So now the question is, which, sorry to say, happens way too much nowadays. If a kid went through the yeshiva system, and then he throws it all away. Does he have a din of a real Mechalo Shabbos or not? Because he knows. So that's a big issue in halacha. Every case has to be judged individually, because the question is, yeah, he maybe went to yeshiva, but did he really learn what Shabbos is? You know, he learned, okay, don't do this. Did he learn about the Kedusha of Shabbos? That every case needs to be judged individually.
you can't say.
But there's definitely a big difference between somebody, a kid who went through the yeshiva system and is completely not frum, giving them an aliyah or counting them for a minyan, versus somebody that's a typical non-religious person that comes to shul. That those people you could give aliyahs and count for a minyan.
Can you, the fact that they completely abandoned it, is that itself a proof that they really never took it in? Or
No.
you can't use that?
No, then in Mechalo Shabbos you could say that.
Right.
No, Mechalo Shabbos, if he knows what it is, it's what? If a kohen is intermarried, he can get kohen. Okay, we're going off topic. A Jew that intermarries can get an aliyah? Yeah? Look in Shuvas. I'll show you the Mesh as a Shuv he can't. No. What? His Shuvah wasn't 3,000 years ago. The world is much more mekel now, because they say even that's Tinuk Shanishba. Even that's Tinuk Shanishba. But it depends. If it's a guy that went through a yeshiva system and married and intermarried, yeah? You can't call him Tinuk Shanishba on that. So then it'd be a big shy of giving an aliyah. Counting him a minyan, you could. Huh? No, he loses the Kedusha's Kohen. He can't go to cemeteries, he can't do all that, but he lost the Kedusha of Kohen. What? He can't do Chen either. He can't do Berachas Kohen, he can't get an Aliyah Kohen. So he can get. Okay. Machen Sie nicht so,